Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 1, Chapter 6, verse between 1 to 19. Conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva. Evam nishamya bhagavan devarshe janma karma cha bhuyah praprachattam brahman vyasa satyavati sutaha.
Text 1 translation. Suta said, O Brahmanas, thus hearing all about Sri Narada's birth and activities, Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God and son of Satyavati, inquired as follows.
Verse 2. Vyasa uvacha भिक्षुभिर्विप्रवसिते विज्ञानादेष्टुभिस्तवा वर्तमानो वयस्याद्ये ततः किमकरोद् भवान्.
Text 2 translation. Sri Vyasadeva said, what did you, Narada, do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you in scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth?
Verse 3. स्वायम्भुवा कया वृत्त्या वर्तितं ते परं वयः कथं चेदमुदस्राक्षि काले प्राप्ते कलेवरम्.
Text 3 translation. O son of Brahma, how did you pass your life after initiation, and how did you attain this body, having quit your old one in due course?
Verse 4. प्राक्कल्पविषयामेतां स्मृतिं ते मुनिसत्तमा न ह्येष व्यवधात् काला एष सर्वनिराकृतिः.
Translation. O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course. So how is it that this subject matter, which happened prior to the day of Ma, is still fresh in your memory, undisturbed by time?
Verse 5. नारद उवाच भिक्षुभिर्विप्रवसिते विज्ञानादेशुभिर्मम वर्तमानो वयस्याद्ये तत एतदकारशम्.
Text 5 translation. Sri Narada said, the great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way.
Verse 6. एकात्मजा मे जननी योषिन्मूढा च किङ्करी मय्यात्मजेन नन्यगतौ चक्रे स्नेहानुबन्धनम्.
Translation. Prabhuji, can you just move the screen up? Thank you. I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman, but a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with the tie of affection.
Verse 7. सा स्वतन्त्रा न कल्पासीत् योगक्षेमं ममेच्छति ईशस्या हि वशे लोको योषा दारुमयी यथा.
X7 translation. She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything for me. The world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master.
Verse 8. अहं च तत् ब्रह्मकुले ऊशिवांस्तदुपेक्षया दिग्देशकालाव्युत्पन्नो बालकः पञ्चहायनः.
Translation. When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmana school. I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different lands.
Verse 9. Ekada nirgatam gehad uhanti nishigam pathi sarpo dashatpada sprushta kripanam kalachoditaha.
Translation. Once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, influenced by supreme time.
Verse 10. Tada tadahamishasya bhaktanam shamabhipsataha anugraham manyamana pratishtham dishamuttaram.
Translation. I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees, and so thinking, I started for the north.
Verse 11. Spitanjana puragramavrajakaraन् खेटखर्वटवाटीश्च वनान्युपवनानि च.
Translation. After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forest.
Verse 12. Chitradhatu vichitradrin निभ भग्नभजद्रुमान् जलाशायाज्ञवजलान् नलिनी सुरसेविताः चित्रस्वनैः पत्तरथैर्विभ्रमद्भ्रमरश्रियः.
Translation. I passed through hills and mountains full of reservoirs of various minerals like gold, silver, and copper, and through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers, fit for the denizens of heaven, decorated with bewildered bees and singing birds.
Verse 13. Nalavenu Sharastamba Kushaki Chagahvaram Eka Evati Yatoham Madraksham Vipinam Mahat Ghoram Pratibhayakaram Vyalolu Shivajiram.
Translation. I then passed alone through many forests of rushes, bamboo, reeds, sharp grass, weeds, and caves, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerously fearful forests, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals.
Verse 14. परिश्रान्तेन्द्रियात्माहं त्रुट्परीतो बुभुक्षितः स्नात्वा पीत्वा ह्रदे नद्या उपस्पृष्टो गतश्रमः.
Translation. Thus traveling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took a bath in the river lake and also drank water. By contacting water, I got relief from my exhaustion.
Verse 15. तस्मिन् निर्मनुजेरण्ये पिप्पलोपस्थ आश्रितः आत्मानात्मानमात्मस्थं यथा श्रुतमचिन्तयम्.
Translation. After that, under the shadow of a banyan tree in an uninhabited forest, I began to meditate upon the super soul situated within, using my intelligence as I had learned from liberated souls.
Verse 16. ध्यायतश्चरणाम्भोजं भावनिर्जिततेजसा औत्कण्ठ्याश्रुकलाक्षस्य हृद्यासीन्मेषणैर्हरिः.
Translation. As soon as I began to meditate upon the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead with my mind transformed into transcendental love, tears rolled down my eyes, and without delay, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, appeared on the lotus of my heart.
Verse 17. प्रेमातिभरनिर्भिन्ना पुलकाङ्गोति निर्वृतः आनन्द सम्प्लवे लीनो नापश्यामुभयं मुने.
Translation. O Vyasadeva, at that time being exceedingly overpowered by feelings of happiness, every part of my body became separately enlivened. Being absorbed in an ocean of ecstasy, I could not see both myself and the Lord.
Verse 18. Rupam bhagavato yattan manah kantam shuchapaham apashyan sahasotaste vaiklavyad durmana iva.
Translation. The transcendental form of the Lord, as it is, satisfies the mind's desire and at once erases all mental incongruities. Upon losing that form, I suddenly got up, being perturbed as is usual when one loses that which is desirable.
Verse 19. Ditrukshustadaham bhuya pranidhaya manohridi vikshamaanopi napashyam avitrupta ivaturaha.
Translation. I desired to see again that transcendental form of the Lord, but despite my attempts to concentrate upon the heart with eagerness to view the form again, I could not see him anymore, and thus dissatisfied, I was very much aggrieved. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Apologies for my spelling mistakes.
No, thank you so much, Krishna Shaila Mataji and Shakshi Mataji, for the Sanskrit and English translation. Thank you. I forgot to mention later on, Mata Mataji is going to be singing a beautiful song on Shrimati Radharani. And then because today was Snana Yatra, I'll also mention a few words about Snana Yatra and the importance of Snana Yatra, bathing Lord Jagannath, Lord Baladev, and Subhadra Maharani. So today's verse, so make sure you can see this, okay? Is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 6, verse number 2, yeah? Yaso vacha akshudeva pravasite ikyadagre stava atamano vasyasyati tatake vakarod bhavam. The word-to-word translation. Yaso vacha Sri Vyasadeva said, Ikshubihi, by the great mendicants, Pravasite, having departed for other places, Jnana, scientific knowledge, transcendence, Adyastrivihi, those who had instructed, Tava, of your, Vartamanaha, present, Ayasi, at the duration of life, Ajay, before the beginning of, Tataha, after that, came what? Karot, good, Pavan, your good self. Translation, and purport of our His Divine Grace, is about the Raja Srila Prabhupada, teacher. Sri Vyasadeva said, what did you, Narada, do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you in scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth? Purport. Vyasadeva himself was a disciple of Naradaji, and therefore it was natural to be anxious to hear what Narada did after initiation from the spiritual masters. He wanted to follow Narada's footsteps in order to attain to the same perfect stage of life. This desire to inquire from the spiritual master is an essential factor to the progressive path. This process is typically known as Sadhama Pracha. Translation again, Sri Vyasadeva said, what did you, Narada, do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you in scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth? So recite the invocation prayers. Please do join me if you wish to. Om Jana Timanasya Jana Jana Shivataya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishta Stapita Megabhutare Swayam Rupa Pitamayam Atati Swapitantikam Vandeham Shiguru Shri Yuta Padaka Malam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sabrajatam, Sadhana Raghunathan Vitantam, Shri Guru Sadvaitam Savadutam, Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padam, Sadhana Lalita Shri Vishkavatamsha, Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Karuna Bandhu Jagapati, Gopishwara Gopika Gata, Radha Gata Namostate, Tata Gajana Gauranye, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Shabada Sutadevi Paramami Hare Priya, Panchagopa Tarubhyasya, Kripa Sindhu Vacha, Patitanam, Avanebhyo Vaishnaveyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Charu Swami Kinamine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Kinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pachayane Nirvishesha Sudnivare Pachita Desatayane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasi Govinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me today for this chat class. I will pay my respects to the Guru Srila Prabhupada and also to my special master Bhakti Swami, who asked me to give me some intelligence so I could say some nice, favorable words about the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Also ask for your blessings so I can speak nicely and that you can understand what I say about the topics of the Supreme Lord. So from the first 20 verses, first 19 verses we were reading today, you could understand earlier on in chapter 5, sorry, Vyasadeva was feeling very despondent and he wanted to find out exactly what the situation was, because although he wrote the Vedas, he could not be fully satisfied. He felt that there was something missing. And this is when Narada Muni had come in to explain that, although you've written the Vedas, you've not really explained about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his pastimes, his Leela, the actual way to elevation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet. And Narada Muni was instructing him in this way. And then as he was progressing with his discussion with Vyasadeva, he was mentioning about his previous birth when he was a young boy. Was the only child of a maidservant. And because the mother, the maidservant, did not really have any royal status, any sort of wealth or any sort of place to stay, she was always under the protection of the sages who she used to take care of on behalf of the kings during that time. So when Narada Muni was such a young boy, his mother used to ask him to take care of the sages too, by feeding them the prasadam, taking care of their utensils, giving them the water. And at the same time, the sages were very, very pleased with Narada Muni. Of course, his name was Narada Muni at the time, he was such a young boy. And then as time progressed, the sages were very pleased with Narada, and they blessed him that he'd be a great devotee. Unfortunately, as time progressed, his mother unfortunately died through the bite of a serpent, as they call it, the bite of time, because time, ultimately we all have to live, stay alive, and die eventually. But this is the cycle of life, birth, and death, samsara. So, but then in his next birth, Narada Muni, because of his piety of taking care of the sages who were very pleased, the Brahmanas, they were considered to be like the spiritual masters for Narada Muni, and they instructed him. So Narada Muni in his previous life, he prayed and prayed and prayed and meditated for the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord revealed to Narada himself, and Narada Muni was very pleased. He saw the Supreme Lord personally. But then the vision of Lord Vishnu had disappeared, and Narada Muni was feeling very sad and very disheartened. And he wanted to meditate again and again to see the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord, within his heart, revealed to Narada, saying, Narada, I am very pleased with you, but unfortunately you will not be able to see me in my original form as you did earlier on. But you will be able to in my next life, in your next life. And hence in this next life, he became Narada Muni, the son of Brahma, who was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. You see, and depicted in many of the Leelas of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, sometimes he's the mediator, he's also the spiritual master of many of the sages, the saints, the kings of that time, as written in Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes Narada Muni specifically appears to deliberately enhance the Leelas of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like when he went to see Kamsa, he told Kamsa, look, although you've imprisoned Devaki and Vasudeva, and you're allowing this firstborn to be kept alive, but you never know, any of the 8-born childs of Devaki and Vasudeva could come and kill you. So people may wonder, well, Narada Muni is a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. Why is he actually saying all these things, this confidential information to Kamsa, this enemy of Vishnu? But of course, everything has a leela, and we read the Srimad Bhagavatam later on, it describes the reasons why the 8 children of Devaki were actually killed in such a way due to their previous sinful reactions in their previous life. But also Narada Muni wanted to enhance the advent of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Other times he may actually bring a person from a very distressed situation to a point of enlightenment, like Narada Muni instructed Prahlad Maharaj, instructed Dhruva Maharaj, many of the kings and sages who are very tormented in their personal life and their desire of what they wanted. Although it was mature desires, Narada Muni explained in such a way that the mature desires would not have any full satisfaction. So he brought them closer to the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So spiritual master is very important. It's not such an ordinary person who can actually give you instruction. And of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually mentions about the importance about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and how he instructed that Supreme Science from himself to another personality, to another personality. So at the moment, there's a particular verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 1. Would anyone like to read that quickly?
Do you mind?
Yeah, Tamesh, do you unmute yourself? Okay, I'll read it out. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 1. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Ma Vishvashate Yoga Bhakta Vamahamavayam Vivashva Manave Praha Manu Ikshvakave Bhavet Manu Ikshvakave Bhavet. Translation: the personality of the Red Lord Shri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivashvan. Vivashvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. Manu in turn instructed it to Ishvaku. So during the time of the ancient kings, the way that knowledge, transcendental knowledge, Vijnana, was passed through hearing. That was very important. They didn't actually write everything down because they were so possessed with learned knowledge and empowered in such a way that they could remember all the verses, whatever they saw, whatever they heard, they could remember it and pass it on without diluting it or adding any of their own sort of speculation to it. And that is known as Smriti. The other way of actually remembering the Supreme Lord is what is written down in the form of Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the Puranas, the Vedas, and that is called Shruti. One who could actually hear the scriptures, hear or read the scriptures itself. So during that time, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Science was passed from himself because it's unadulterated, it is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is the absolute truth, and he passed it on to a pure devotee, the Surya Narayan, Vivashwan, and then Vivashwan instructed it to Manu, and then Manu in turn instructed it to Ishvaku. So this Supreme Science gets passed on from one generation to another generation. Now, could anyone tell me exactly what the importance is between the relationship between the guru and the disciple? What sort of relationship should it be?
Loving Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Pranams. Guru and disciple, like God, basically. He's next to God, or like a father and son, or a mother and a daughter, or whichever way, so that you obey them, you don't disobey them, and you keep them, you are at their feet all the time. So
Yeah, that's right. What's your name, Mataji?
Mamta.
Mamta, okay, sorry, Mamta. It's just got yes,
Sorry,
okay,
Prabhuji, I have
yeah.
to change my name every time I do that.
That's okay. So yeah, Mamta is very right. It's a relationship like a father and a son. But importantly, the qualities itself inside, which I was looking for, was like the mood of surrender, the mood of inquisitiveness, the mood of being subservient to the spiritual master. It's the disciple is always very, very, very humble, meek, and ready to listen to any of the instructions of the spiritual masters. So many years ago, I used to learn the tabla from a very, very well renowned tabla player, Punjabi tabla player in Southall. And this particular tabla player was actually a student of his full name, Alaka Hussain. He was one of the top public tabla players in the world. And when my teacher started learning from this top tabla player from around the world, he was just telling him to do one finger beat all day long, all day long, all day long. And then the second day, he would teach him another beat, and he had to practice that again and again all day long. And he'd practice for hours and hours and hours, 14 hours at a time sometimes. But then he became so knowledgeable, very, very talented in playing the tabla himself, that the instruction was that sometimes the spiritual master may tell you to do something, but you've got to take that instructions to heart and just do it continuously until it's embedded into you, inside your heart, drummed into you, in other words, to follow that particular instructions. And the teacher, the spiritual master, because he's knowledgeable, he's learned, he knows exactly how to instruct a particular disciple according to his capacity. Some may be very, very advanced in their spiritual life, some may be not so knowledgeable, some may be very practical in their sort of devotional service, some may be very good at hearing, but not good at chanting or reciting or singing. So the spiritual master, because he is empowered, Shakti Aveshavata, sometimes it's known as a partial expansion of the Supreme Lord, or expansion of Lord Nityananda, they have the ability to train their disciples in such a way to bring out the best out of them. But the disciples' duty is also to ensure that we don't commit sinful reactions. If we commit sinful reactions, then what will happen? That karma goes back to our spiritual master. That's the last thing we want to see. So that's where we see a lot of spiritual leaders suffering a lot because of poor health, poor sort of situation in their life. So that's when we think, oh, they've neglected their life, their bodies. But you look at Srila Prabhupada, in this short lifespan, when he went to the West to preach Krishna consciousness to the Westerners, within a short space of time, he initiated something like 10,000 disciples. So that's quite a substantial amount. But don't forget, a lot of these were Westerners. I would say about 95% of them were Westerners. And the Westerners, because they were very new to Krishna consciousness, they were very excited. They loved the kirtans, they loved the association, they loved the different culture, the learning about Krishna consciousness, the music. Everything was very, very enlivening for them because it was something new. Of course, it was also to do with the piety from the previous life. But just like sometimes, unless you are very fixed, very focused, then there's a tendency to make mistakes, tendency to make offenses, tendency to drift away from your spiritual life, even reject your spiritual master. Even when Srila Prabhupada was alive, it was just unfortunate that many of his disciples wanted to become authorities themselves, wanted to have disciples, wanted to look after the society the way that they told us, right? I just mute that. So what happened? It became a burden for Srila Prabhupada, and he felt that, he felt intimidated, he felt, overshadowed by these new Westerners who were becoming to want to become spiritual masters themselves. So Srila Prabhupada had to endure that difficulties, and he had to sort of pacify them. Don't worry, you will become spiritual masters, but it will take time. You need to be qualified to become a spiritual master. You cannot just accept a disciple just like that. Sometimes in Krishna consciousness, or not in Krishna consciousness, when you read the Bhagavatam, sometimes you read the word twice born brahmanas, Does anybody want to have a guess what that actually refers to? Twice born Brahmanas? Okay, I'll explain. So normally at the beginning of your life, we are born in ignorance. Because of the material conditioning, the three modes of material nature, everything that governs around us, we're not actually completely, we may be devotionally attracted to Krishna, but we're not fully surrendered. So only when we come in contact with the spiritual master do we have that link to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even as we mentioned earlier on. But importantly, what's really important is that when you take initiation, take certain vows of, the guidelines by following the authorities, by following the spiritual master. In this case, the four regulations are no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. And as a brother, we sort of emphasize the chanting of 16 rounds every day, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when we actually follow those instructions, the Pushpa sees when we're ready to take that initiation. And the first initiation is called Diksha initiation, when you accept a spiritual master. There's also another initiation or another terminology called Shiksha Guru. And sometimes you may have your own Diksha Guru, your own spiritual master is initiated to the Sampradaya, but also you have a Shiksha Guru. You might have another guru who may be very knowledgeable, very learned, who may instruct you in certain arts of Vedic science, certain arts of devotional services, practices, or you may be very, very, I suppose, connected to this particular spiritual master because he has another wealth of spiritual knowledge. But it's not to say that you've rejected your Diksha Guru, because that would become a great offense, but you've also accepted another guru to impart that knowledge he has given to you as well. So it's important to know Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru. The twice born Brahmana, it actually refers to when you take the next level of your spiritual initiation. That is when you take the Brahmana initiation. For the men, they wear a thread around the shoulders and around the waist. And for the ladies, they don't actually have a Brahman thread itself. And the Brahmins, they take their spiritual life even more seriously. Why is that? Because they have completely committed themselves to take all the qualities of a Brahmana. The Brahmana by nature, or according to Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, he should be humble, he should be truthful, he should be passionate, compassionate, he should be honest, kind to all living entities. We hear that verse every day in the morning. Jana Pisana Chena, Garopi Saishtuna, Manina Manadina, Ketana Sadari. So these are the qualities of a Brahmana. He should be tolerant like a tree. He should be humble like a blade of grass. He should be devoid of all sense of false prestige and ready to offer all respects to others. That is the quality of a Brahmana. And when you actually have that status, then you can actually go to the next level of your spiritual journey. You could take on deity service to a greater level, invite the lordships to your home and worship them as well. It's so important that we take that journey ourselves. Sometimes many of us come to the temple, we take darshan, bring a donation, feed the cows, take prasadam, and that's it for a day. And that's Prabhupada also sometimes mentions that the Christians do the same, like on a Sunday, they go to the church, they pray for their daily bread, and then the rest of the days to go on doing whatever sinful activities they do. But actually, when you actually surrender to Krishna, you take it seriously. I take the one step to Krishna, Krishna takes 10 steps towards you. And it's important that we actually take our spiritual life seriously. As we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years, during the COVID lockdown, we've lost so many wonderful friends, colleagues, acquaintances, friends, family members, senior devotees. But one day, that same situation will happen to us, and we think, oh, Krishna, I didn't do anything to surrender myself completely to you. And now, sometimes, as we sometimes say, well, coming into an elderly age and I don't have any energy, I don't have any sort of ability or intelligence or memory to remember what these verses, these beautiful pastimes. But what can we do? We can just keep chanting and chanting and chanting. That way we can always remember Krishna 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah. So I mentioned about karmic reaction. So we have to be so careful that we don't actually commit sinful activities, or as they say, to disobey the orders of the special master, which is the third offense, chanting the holy name of the Lord. Also, the seventh offense is to commit sinful activities to the strength of the holy name. So important that we remain focused and we will always remain under the association and guidance of the spiritual authorities by having devotee association, devotee sangha, going for morning program, chanting your 16 lines, doing devotional practices at home, as well as at the temple, reading from the Bhagavatam, reading from the Gita, discussing the spiritual topics with one another, attending classes like these. We're so fortunate with modern technology. Sometimes we're living in so many remote parts of the world, but we can connect to each other through this wonderful technology. And Prabhupada used to say that, anything material, if it's used in Krishna's service, actually becomes spiritualized. So we're using this technology to communicate with each other, talk about Krishna Katha, have sadhu sangha with each other, have association, realizations, and so forth. So to continue with your regular devotional practices, as we know, there's 9 particular devotional practices: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smanam, Padasevanam, Ashanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Of the most important is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, which is hearing and chanting. When you hear from the authorities, then you take action according to the instructions. And this is exactly what Narada Muni is doing. So Vyasadeva is asking Narada Muni, what did you do when you were instructed by the scientific transcendental knowledge, from the sages? What did you do then? And then Narada Muni is obviously instructing Sage Vyasadeva exactly what he's doing. And what is he doing? He's traveling around the universe, spreading the wonderful glories and pastimes of Sri Krishna to everyone. Sometimes people say, well, who is Narada Muni? There's many questions, although he's a great sage, but in what capacity is he? So there's 12 Mahajans. These are great personalities, great devotees of the Supreme Lord. Does anybody know, can mention anybody of the 12 Mahajans at all? I'll give you one. It was
Is
said
it
by
Hare
Mother
Krishna
Shri.
Prabhuji?
Hare
I
Krishna.
understand, Mamta, yeah.
Is Vyasadeva?
No, Vyasadeva wasn't one.
Kapila Muni? No.
Okay, Kapila Muni, yeah. I'll just hide this again.
I don't know. I think Narada Muni, I think among the 24 of them, avatars, will they not be from them, Prabhuji?
Oh, you're
Maybe I'm
Googling.
I'll give it up. I'll give somebody else was the time to answer, I think, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Hare
Perhaps,
Krishna, Prabhuji.
yeah, sure.
It's Narada, Bhishma
Yeah.
Pitama,
Yeah,
and Amrish Maharaj, Dhruv
yeah,
Maharaj.
yeah. Not Dhruva Maharaj, no.
Oh no.
There's a reason why Dhruva Maharaj isn't there. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to read this, Pataji? Do you want to read this verse? Can you see it on the screen? Okay, I'll read it out.
It's in Sanskrit. I can't read.
Okay, sure. Mamta, do you want to read this? Okay, I'll read it quickly. Also running out of time. So
Sorry,
these are the
yeah, I can read. Sorry.
Okay,
You want
sure.
me to-
Carry on.
You want to read it, Prabhuji?
Yes, read this verse. Canto 6, chapter 3, verse 20 and 21, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Swayambhurnarada Sambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Balir Vaisakir Vayam Dvadashaite Vijanimo Dharmam Bhagavatam Bhataha Guhyam Vishuddham Durbodham Yam Gnatvam Ashmute.
Very good. And this is the translation. If you want to quickly read that as well.
I can, okay, Mr. Prabhuji. Translation: Lord Brahma, Bhagavan Narada, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlada Maharaja, Janaka Maharaja, Grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaja, Sukadeva Goswami, and I, Yama myself, know the real religious principle. My dear servants, this transcendental religious principle, which is known as Bhagavata Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated, and thus he returns home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So there you have the 12 Mahajans, the great personalities who actually pursue the religious principles, Dharma, throughout the entire universe. And Narada Muni is one of them. And in fact, they've used the name Bhagavan here as well. This is quite authentic because I checked the same verse in the database that actually has the same translation, Bhagavan, Narada as well. So Narada is considered to be a great personality who has always glorified Lord Vishnu around the world. And you've heard so many wonderful stories. Because we're just running out of time, I was going to read a beautiful story to you, if you don't mind. I think this is Narada Muni, follows from a boy's mouth. So once there lived a greedy king called Sriranjaya. He had only a daughter and no son. Don't forget, mention greedy king, so you'll understand why. He felt about it badly. So he asked the Brahmanas, and they told him that if he worshipped Narada Muni, he could get his desires fulfilled. So one day, when Narada Muni came to Srinjaya's palace, Srinjaya worshipped him. He prayed to Narada Muni for a son. And Narada Muni asked the king what sort of son he desired. The king replied, saying that he wanted a beautiful, intelligent, healthy son from whose mouth pearls should fall as he cries or speaks. Narada Muni blessed the king and went away. Soon the son was born to the king by the blessings of Narada Muni. Pearls started falling from the child's mouth every time he spoke or cried. The palace was filled with pearls. Even the doors and walls of the palace were inlaid with jewels. The story of this miracle child spread like wildfire. A gang of robbers in the forest came to know about this child and decided to kidnap the baby. One night they stealthily entered the palace and took away the child. When the king came to know of this, he was extremely in distress. He sent the royal soldiers to search out for this child. When the gang of robbers heard the king's command, they decided to leave the child. They were afraid of the soldiers. All the robbers agreed, but one of them disagreed. He suggested that the child be cut into pieces, but every drop of the child's blood could also change into a pearl. Accordingly, they cut the child to pieces. But to their dismay, they couldn't get a single pearl from the child's blood. But then the royal soldiers surrounded the robbers. They bound the robbers and brought the robbers before the king. The king came to know of the tragic end of his child's son. The king realized that his greed had ultimately ruined him. This is a story from the Mahabharata. So the moral of the story is, I'll just quickly read it. It refers to a particular verse from Srimad Bhagavatam again. Mr. Avanti Brahmana, he speaks, theft, violence, speaking lies, duplicity, lust, anger, perplexity, pride, quarreling, enmity, faithlessness, envy, the dangers caused by women, gambling and intoxications are the 15 undesirable qualities that contaminate men because of greed for wealth. Although these qualities are undesirable, men falsely ascribe value to them. One desiring to achieve the real benefits of life should therefore remain aloof from undesirable material wealth. So this is the story of this particular, in this case, the king desiring so much greed, he's desiring material wealth, but unfortunately it came to a situation where he was even more distressed, his own son got killed. And sometimes these qualities that we're trying try and inhibit within ourselves. We should try and get rid of these anarthas in order to have pure Krishna consciousness within our heart. And by that way, we can actually understand the beautiful positives of the Supreme Lord without any conditioning at all whatsoever. Now, I was going to read quickly something on Snana Yatra because of Snana Yatra today, and then we'll go to Mamta Mataji. She'll be singing a beautiful song on Radharani. The Snana Yatra is the bathing festival of deities celebrated on the Purnima, full day of the Hindu month of Jyeshta, in the auspicious birthday of Jagannath. This is the first occasion of the year as per the Hindu calendar, when the deities Jagannath, Baladev, Balabhadra, Subhadra, Sudarshan is sometimes the chakra, it's also known as the personality, and Mother Mohan are brought from the Jagannath Temple Puri and taken into possession to the Snana Beedi. They are ceremonially decorated for public audience with the devotees. It is a belief among the devotees of Lord Jagannath that they make a pilgrimage to see the deity on this day, they will be cleansed of all their sins. Hundreds of thousands of devotees visit the temple on this occasion. The Skanda Purana mentions that King Indrayumna arranged a ceremony for the first time when the deities were first installed. So then it goes on further on. On the day of the Snana Yatra, the deities are bathed with 108 pots of ritually purified water drawn from the northern well of the temple to the accompaniment of religious incantations. In the evening, the conclusion of the bathing ritual, Jagannath and Balabhadra dressed in an elephant headgear. Although it mentions representing as God Ganesh, but that's not true because originally the Supreme Personality is the primeval cause, and everything from the Supreme Lord is a copy of the Supreme Lord himself. After the Snana Yatra, the gods are traditionally believed to fall ill and are kept in a sick room to recuperate in the privacy and the care of the Raj Vaidya. During the period known as Ansara, the gods cannot be seen by devotees. At this time, the three Pata Chitra paintings are displayed for devotees to view instead. This is three Pata Chitra is the paintings of Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, Baladev. Sometimes you go to Radha Temple and you see the beautiful paintings of the lordships. And there's lots of cards, cards sent by devotees to Lord Jagannath, praying that he comes and recovers really quickly. Display for devotees to view instead. It is said that the Ayurvedic medication, Panchan, administered by the Raj Vaidya, the god recovers for a fortnight and assumes giving an origin to the devotees. This is when the Rath Yatra begins. After they recover from the illness, they are placed on the Rath, and then they're taken around on a huge procession. Has many of you been to Jagannath Puri at all? I do recommend, you
yes,
have, yeah, I do recommend if you do go to India, I know we go to Vrindavan and Mayapur, you must make the point to go to Jagannath Puri. It's so beautiful. There's the Mahaprashadam there, the Mahapuri, so amazing. And make sure that you go there with the guided devotee, ideally a disco devotee, so they take you to the right places and not go astray somewhere else. Or unfortunately, there are Brahmins, several Brahmins who, unfortunately take advantage of tourists who are not familiar with the place itself. So thank you very much. There was more I wanted to speak and talk about, but on this occasion I'll come to an end because now Mamta Mataji is going to be reciting a beautiful song on Srimati Radharani. Okay.
Hare
Shri
Krishna.
Radha Kripa Kataksha Stavaraja. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is basically a song by glorifying by a devotee, glorifying Radharani, and basically asking for a merciful glance towards the devotee, because once Radharani glances at the devotee, then all the karmic reactions are nullified, and they become completely destroyed, and then one can gain entrance into the assembly of Nandanandana's eternal loving associates. Hare Krishna. मुनीन्द्र वृन्दवन्दिते त्रिलोकशोकहारिणि प्रसन्नवक्त्रपङ्कजे निकुञ्जभूविलासिनी व्रजेन्द्रभानुनन्दिनी व्रजेन्द्रसूनुसङ्गते कदा करिष्यसि मां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् अशोकवृक्षवल्लभी वितानमण्डपस्थिते प्रवालवालपल्लवा प्रभारुणाङ्घ्रिकोमले वराभयस्फुरत्करे प्रभूतसम्पदालये कदा करिष्यसि मां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् अनङ्गरङ्गमङ्गला प्रसङ्गभङ्गुराभ्रुवम् सविभ्रमं ससम्भ्रमं त्रिगन्तबाणपातनै निरन्तरं वशीकृता प्रतीतिनन्दनन्दने कदा करिष्यसि मां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् तदेत्सुवर्ण चम्पका प्रदीप्तगौरविग्रहे मुखप्रभापरास्तकोटि शारदेन्दुमण्डले विचित्रचित्रसञ्चराचकोरशा लोचने कदा करिष्यसि मां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् मदोन्मदाति यौवने प्रमोदमान मण्डिते प्रियानुरागरञ्जिते कलाविलास पंडिते अनन्यधन्य कुंज राज्य कामकेलि कोविदे कदा करिष्यसि मां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् अशेष हाव भाव धीरहीरहार भूषिते प्रभूत शात कुंभ कुंभ कुंभि कुंभ सुस्तनि प्रशस्त मंडहास्य चूर्ण पूर्ण सौख्य सागर कदा करिष्यसि मां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् मृणालवालवल्लरी तरङ्गरङ्गदोलते लताग्रलास्य लोलनीला लोचनावलोकने ललालुलन्मिलन् मनोज्ञमुग्धमोहनाश्रिते कदा करिष्यसि मां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् सुवर्णमल्लिकाञ्चिता त्रिरेखकम्बुकण्टके त्रिसूत्रमङ्गली गुणा त्रिरत्नदीप्तिदीधिति सलोलनीलकुण्टला प्रसूनगुच्छगुम्फिते कदा करिष्यसि हमां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनं नितम्बबिम्बलम्बमान पुष्पमेकलावुणे प्रशस्तरत्नकिङ्किणी कलापमध्यमञ्जुले करीन्द्रसुण्डदण्डिका वरोहसौभगोर्गे कदा करिष्यसि हमां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् अनेकमन्त्रनादमञ्जु नूपुररवस्खलत् समाजराजहंस वंस निक्वणाति गौरवे विलोलहेमवल्लरी विडम्बिचारुचङ्क्रमे कदा करिष्यसि हमां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् अनन्तकोटिविष्णुलोक नम्रपद्मजार्चिते हिमाद्रिजापुलोमजा विरिञ्चजावराप्रदे अपारसिद्धिरिद्धिदिग्ध सत्पदाङ्गुलीनखे कदा करिष्यसि हमां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् मखेश्वरी क्रियेश्वरी स्वधेश्वरी सुरेश्वरी त्रिवेदभारतीश्वरी प्रमाणशासनेश्वरी रमेश्वरी क्षमेश्वरी प्रमोदकाननेश्वरी व्रजेश्वरी व्रजाधिपे श्रीराधिके नमोस्तुते इतीमम् अद्भुतं स्तवं निशम्य भानुनन्दिनी करोतु सन्ततं जनं कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् भवेत् तदैव सञ्चिता त्रिरूपकर्मनाशनम् लभेत् तदा व्रजेन्द्रसूनु मण्डलप्रवेशनम् कदा करिष्यसि हमां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् कदा करिष्यसि हमां कृपाकटाक्षभाजनम् 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 Hare Krishna, Sri Radha Rani ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Matamatsu. You're not feeling too shy. Do you want to show yourself?
Okay.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, sorry. I'm here.
No, thank you. So at least
Sorry.
people recognize the voice to the face as well. So that was beautifully sound, really nice. Well done.
Thank you,
I
Prabhuji.
really appreciate you taking the time to recite it. Next week, certainly, what has to be, is to recite it again at the temple if you can. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And also thank you for the
I just want to show my Krishna, if it's okay, everyone.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
quickly, Prabhuji. if I can, where's the thing? How do I turn? I'm just thinking. Oh no, I think I'm getting stuck now. Oh yes, I got it. That is still his. And can you see, Prabhuji?
Oh, yeah. So very beautiful. Everyone can see. Okay.
That one, and also the temple is this. I just put the light on. So
Yeah.
quickly. So that's the temple, Prabhuji. I just
Oh, so beautiful. Really nice.
Jagannath at that side, and then I have Krishna here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So beautiful. Thank you. Lovely decorated with all the flowers as well. So you must take care of them every single day. Do an arti, offering the different paraphernalia to them, offering the bhega to them, the fruits every day. Mamta, is that right?
So, Prabhuji?
You do the offering every morning?
Little bit. I mean, not the full arti because I just do a little bit of prayers on my own, but I have to do that arti. It is in the morning. Maybe at least weekly once. If I do the full ritual, it will be nice.
Yeah.
I'm trying, Prabhuji. I'll try.
That's so amazing. Well done. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Just thank you to Krishna Mataji and also Shakshi Mataji for recitation today. I think it's almost 1 hour since the class started, so I don't think there's any comments. Is there any comments or questions anybody wanted to ask? No, thank you. Please kindly bless me that I could carry on with these wonderful topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, and also allow me to purify myself as well and show my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.